this video, we'll show you 3 things that I learned from Jim Carrey on the law of attraction and spiritual awakening. I'm going to share with you ways that you can apply this in your own life so that you're able to get the results that you want and really become who you prefer to be. Welcome back to another video. My name is Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the 3 things that I've observed in watching Jim Carrey over the years. Things that I think can help us understand consciousness at a deeper level and really how we can embody who we prefer to be at a deeper level as well. Now, as you guys may have seen Jim Carrey recently, he's been saying some pretty off-the-wall things in the course or, from the perspective of maybe somebody that doesn't understand where he's coming from. Now, understand that I've seen Jim Carrey go through phases. Now, these phases have been him in his own level of spiritual awakening. Now, I'm not looking at it like I'm some evolved being or, I'm better in any way whatsoever, but I am aware that he definitely went through a phase of the law of attraction, understanding how his thoughts are creating his experience. And then at a certain point, he became much more aware of a higher level of consciousness. He became more aware that he is not the ego, that his ego and all the people around that have these egos are not just who they are, that we are all at a deeper level consciousness. And this perspective in his interviews, when he's responding to interviewers in a funny way and in a certain way that a lot of people don't understand, will think that he's actually crazy. Now, the funny thing is that from a certain perspective, when you have this level of awareness, everyone else may look like they're actually the crazy ones. And that's because when you think and you become identified with the ego, and you become identified with all the importance that we give to all of these Hollywood things and all of these things that are happening, from a different perspective, it all looks like a funny game, a pointless game. And that's where Jim Carrey has gotten to. He's gotten to a place, not something that he attained or some higher level, awareness. He just expanded himself more into the present moment. And with that level of consciousness, he's become aware that he is not the ego and that everything else he can, observe is just happening. Doesn't need to be labeled. And from that perspective, he might look crazy, but it is definitely a more expanded point of view. Now, I want to share with you 3 things that I've learned from watching Jim Carrey over the years, how it relates to the law of attraction, how it relates to a higher level of consciousness, and how we can apply that in our own lives as well. The first one has to do with the law of attraction. You may have seen the interview when he's talking to Oprah, where he talks about how he wrote on a piece of paper a blank check for $10 million, said that it was for services rendered for a movie. And it's interesting to me because he wrote that down, he kept it in his wallet, and he would look at it frequently. And within a period of time, he was offered a role in Dumb and Dumber where he was going to make $10 million, almost the exact amount that he wrote down. And that was something that, I think really proved to him that the law of attraction works. He probably had already had experiences of that before that came. But that's definitely something, that's definitely a story that can kind of help solidify the idea of the law of attraction and understanding that there is a correlation between what we think about and what we experience. Now, I want to point out a couple things about this. Jim Carrey was taking action, doing what he loves. He was starring in movies, maybe movies that weren't as big, and still doing what he absolutely loves to do. Now, I watched him in the movie, was it Man on the Moon? It was where he was playing the other comedian, Andy. And it was like behind the scenes. It was a movie that was recently on Netflix. I actually made a YouTube video about that as well. I'll link it at the end of this on an end card. And in that, he was talking about how, before that movie, he was talking about a story of how he, it's actually kind of funny, he went to like a clairvoyant or a psychic in LA. And that clairvoyant or psychic said that you're going to go on to do 2 or 3 movies in the coming future that will put you on a totally different level to where you will then people won't really be able to kick you off of this level. And then he went on to do the movie The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, and Ace Ventura. And those 3 movies propelled him into a totally different area, to a totally different, level of his acting career. And it was something that I think he, in a way, intended for, but I want to point out that he was taking action towards it at the same time. Sometimes with the law of attraction, it becomes almost like we just assume that it's all about the thinking aspect of it. It's more about the being aspect of it. Because when you embody that, you're almost rewarded for being in that frequency, in that state of being. You know, I create daily videos. I love creating videos. And every day it's something just I enjoy doing. And taking action doesn't feel like work. I take a lot of action. I take, not to get like my ego involved here, but I take probably 70 hours a week of action in my business. But I do what I love, so it doesn't feel like I'm working so hard. So I want to encourage you to know that when you find out what you love to do, it won't feel like hard work. It will feel more like it's just part of what you love to do. And even though there might be times when you have to be disciplined, discipline is a little bit different than just hard work. Hard work implies struggle. It implies that you have to grind your nose, you know. It's about understanding you can enjoy it at the same time. That's something that I think Jim Carrey very much shows in his movies. He loves what he does. Jim Carrey's comedy style takes you out of the seriousness of all the roles, seriousness of life, and it allows you to realize that you can also have that kind of mentality about life too. That's something I learned from Jim Carrey, because that kind of mentality helps. When you're so serious on achieving your goals, when I'm like, oh, I want to create this in my life, I want to do this, I want to do this, sometimes I become so serious about it. It's like, dude, just relax. And when you watch someone like Jim Carrey, who has pretty much no ego in his movies because he's just making fun of himself, it's like you can also, that kind of rubs off on you. So that's something I learned from him as well. Be more playful with your goals. Understand you can loosen up and not take your ego so seriously. And that as you do that, things happen easier because you've elevated your state of being. That's something that I think we can all learn from Jim Carrey, and understanding at the same time that the law of attraction is something that you can use to your benefit by consciously deciding and having an intent for what you want, and then embodying that as much as you possibly can. Now, the second thing I learned from Jim Carrey is his higher level awareness that he's attained. Now, it's kind of funny, higher level awareness that he's attained. It's really a more expanded view of who he really is. Now, understand that we are immortal spiritual beings having temporary human experiences. That we may forget who we are. That we may become so entrenched in our life, so identified with our ego, that we think, this is who I am. This is who everyone else is. But that there is a more expanded point of view that makes us aware that everything in a way is kind of like a game. You know, he's been interviewed, and this is where people may say, oh, he's gone crazy. He's saying things that are just off the wall. Well, understand, he doesn't identify with his ego the way he used to. So it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what I think. But I am aware that it's an expanded point of view. It's an expanded level of consciousness. And that we can learn to detach from our egos. We can learn to detach from the seriousness of life. From even the necessity to fit in. He's saying these things and people are literally just calling him crazy. They think he's crazy. And the point of this is to not care what people think. The point of this is to not become attached to any certain perspective. And I just made a video on this maybe 10 minutes ago, and it was about a spiritual ego. Sometimes we become awake, we become aware of the thoughts and how they correlate into our reality. We become aware of all these things, and we assume, hey, this is who I am. Now I'm Aaron, the meditator. I'm Aaron, the awake being, walking around, looking at McDonald's, looking at Walmart, and thinking, I'm better than all this. That's a spiritual ego. That causes separation. And the point of it is to maybe make fun of it. Maybe play around with it. And to be aware of it. That's where the power is. And I think that it's evident that Jim Carrey has become much more aware of his perspectives, much more aware of who he thinks that he is, and how that's not really who he is. How we are all consciousness. We are all much more expanded than that. And it's a point of view that I think is beautiful. I think it's a beautiful point of view. I think that the more we become aware of it, the more powerful it is. And the way that you can attain a similar level, and attain is such a funny word, like we're not there already. It's an awareness. Become aware of what you're thinking of. Become aware of your own ego and the trap that you might find it in. That's another video I'll link at the end of this, because I just made that video. So I'll link both the Jim Carrey video and that video at the end of this, in case you want to go deeper with it. But understand that you can become aware of what you're thinking of. You can become aware of your own thoughts and realize they are not who you are. You may think thoughts, but you are not your thoughts. And when you start to observe it, the ego stops using you. You start to observe your ego. The you that I'm speaking to you right now, the you that I'm speaking to right now is a deeper part of yourself. It's not just your ego. You may listen, you may think, how does this relate to me using the ego? But if you observe that thought, you've started to evolve and expand your level of consciousness. I don't even like the word evolve, because evolve assumes that there's a higher level. And with that higher level comes a higher spiritual ego. So this is something that I learned from Jim Carrey and watching him in his interviews. To detach from who we think that we are and knowing that we are always more expanded, that we are all a version of each other, that we're all connected, and that level of awareness is something that feels like freedom. It feels void of all the labels, of all the separations, and we become much more integrated into our being, and much more integrated, more importantly, into the present moment. Third thing that I learned from Jim Carrey has to do with understanding money in correlation with our life. Now, he said many times that money and fame won't make you happy. And sometimes I question that. Because I'm thinking, if I attained my goals of making millions of dollars, of traveling the world, of sharing these ideas, of living this extravagant lifestyle, if I attain that, you're telling me I won't be happy? And it's easy said, right? Coming from the guy that's worth over $100 million, that's had amazing life experiences, that does what he loves for a living. But here's the thing. I believe him. I believe that fame and money doesn't make us happy. Now, how can we use this in our daily life, and how can this help us? Well, by realizing that there's more of a spiritual connection that we can focus on. By realizing that there's no external goal that will make us happy. That we can right now in this present moment become more integrated with who we are, and that by doing that, we will feel better. And this is the paradox. But this is a tricky paradox. The paradox is that as we feel better in the present moment, and as we become more present to the moment, a lot of our goals will come to fruition anyways, because we stop resisting. We stop trying to get from here to over there. And with using intention, which is very powerful, we can do and create what we want in our lives without the struggle, without the desperateness to get out of where we currently are. Now, this is something that I've learned from Jim Carrey, because I've seen his interview where he talks about how money and fame won't make you happy. And how when you attain it, it's almost like a very sad moment, because you think that once you get to this external point of view in the future, that you will be happy. And then when you have it, you look around and you don't feel that. And you'll see that a lot with billionaire people. They'll talk about this because it's a con, it's a disguise. When I get there, I will be happy. But the thing is the whole way of getting there, we've trained ourselves to not be happy. And then it just becomes something you need more of. You know, I remember when I first started a YouTube channel, I thought to myself, 100,000 YouTube subscribers, that's it. When that happens, there's going to be this feeling of exhilaration, and it's going to be just this feeling of accomplishment. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And when 100,000 subscribers, when we grew to 100,000, it was a cool feeling for about 2 or 3 hours. And then the ego creeps in and goes, well, what about 150? What about 200,000? You see, there's always more. And the more that I train myself in the present moment to not be happy until that external point in time, the more that con is there, the more that disguise is there, that I think is that's who I am. So the key to this is that it's funny. It really is, because the moment I gave up any type of subscriber, you know, I changed the perspective from some type of subscriber to let me just be who I am in the present moment. Let me just make it more about the content, sharing the content, the feeling underneath the content. What can I do today to add value to people? When I switched to that perspective, the subscribers grew. It came easier because I wasn't so focused on it. I wasn't resisting it. Because I realized that it's more about the energy than it is the external manifestation. But the things come easier anyway. So that's something that I learned from listening to that interview of Jim Carrey, is knowing that we can be happy right now in the present moment, that as we train ourselves to be happy right now in the present moment, that then we train ourselves to be happy in general. And that being happy elevates our state of being, and more amazing things can happen in our life because our state of being has increased. So the 3 things that I learned from Jim Carrey is the first one is about the law of attraction, understanding that we can intend for things to happen, we can embody the frequency that we want. I know frequency is a funny word, some people think it's a woo-woo word. We can embody the state of being that we want, and that by doing that, amazing things begin to line up for us. That secondly, we can transcend our level of consciousness by becoming aware of it, not identifying with it, not labeling other people. And that as we do that, we shift and expand our awareness. And that thirdly, money, fame, success won't make us happy if we train ourselves in the present moment to not be happy. The best thing we can do is know that we are enough, we are whole and complete already, to take action from that point of view, that as we do that, everything begins to change. Now another part of this is understanding our subconscious mind, and that our subconscious mind runs over 90% of our life experience. I've created a free MP3 meditation that you can download in the description box below that will help you change your self-image, that will help you start to see things that they can be easier for you. That as you change and look at it from that new point of view, that everything can begin to change. Understand that that's how powerful our self-image is, and that we can also transcend our self-image if we choose. That's something that you can listen to for 21 days in a row that I recommend, that I think can absolutely transform and change your life. You can download that for free below in the description box, and it's something I think can really change your life. So that's why it's something I offer for free. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already. Also hit that little notification here next to the subscribe button so that you can see the daily videos that I do. And other than that, as always, I will see you guys in the next vid. Peace, much love, namaste.